Coming up next, the Bookening reads The Telltale Heart. Hey everybody, welcome to our special Halloween episode. I'm Nathan Alberson, your humble and obedient host. That's Brandon Chasteen.
Hey guys.
You
guys hear that?
No, I don't hear anything.
Here's some obnoxious mouth sounds somebody's making.
Just
Pretty
like
annoying.
the obnoxious mouth sounds that person Brandon murdered used to make.
Just like it. Sounds just like
telltale mouth sounds.
the telltale mouth sounds.
The telltale mouth sounds are just like, I did it!
Hang on just a minute.
Stop it!
All right.
There we go. That'll teach
We're
him.
okay now.
I'm Nathan. I'm your humble and obedient host. That's Brandon.
Hey.
He's the scholar who's a baller of reading.
Yeah. We'll see.
And that's Jake. He's the pastor who's a master of reading.
Yep.
I thought it was bleeding.
Brandon,
What?
we're not going to do any of that this year.
None of that?
No fun.
No
Zero fun.
Yeah.
Bookening is no longer about fun.
Well, it never was. We were laboring under a false delusion. It turns out we're supposed to be boring and serious.
Yes.
And
Well, I'm glad we've all grown up and we've realized this. No fun here on the Bookening ever.
yep. And anyway, those Halloween puns,
They're not such a scream.
they're not such a scream.
Yeah.
They really have diminishing bleed turns.
They're bloody awful.
Only a hack would make those kinds of puns.
Well, I'm glad you saw your way to reason.
I died. Yeah, we're back. Happy Halloween. Welcome to the Spookening, everybody. I'm your humble and obedient ghost. It's the pastor who's a master of bleeding. Just like
Yeah.
always.
Oh, yeah.
Just bleed.
Oh, boy. It's Brandon Chast Fiend.
Hey.
The scholar who's a baller of
mauler.
spooks. A mauler of spooks.
That's right.
Or bleeding.
Ooh.
Oh, man. I'm so happy. It's Halloween month, guys.
All right.
Yeah.
And we're going to do 5
Guys and ghouls.
terrifying stories. I like to put a hat on a hat. I don't know if anybody's noticed that when it comes to Halloween puns.
I mean, you're always wearing 2 hats on your head.
When it comes to creepy dollo scream puns,
Dallo.
like a creepy doll,
Oh.
like Chucky.
Oh,
you know.
Gallow. Creepy
When
Gallows.
it comes to
scream.
gallows scream,
Yeah.
guns that are used
Ooh,
as
that's
murder weapons.
I'm scared. I am so scared.
You know, Brandon, gun safety is one of the issues that I like to hit from time to time on the Spookening.
Yeah, I know you do.
I don't care about well, I do care about gun safety.
Nathan does care about gun safety. That's great, Nathan.
Hey, guys, I'm so excited. This is the first of 5 mini-sodes that people are getting about Halloween stories. And as me and Brandon recounted last year, we did the same thing. And you guys were like, these stories suck. You're dumb, Nathan, and fat. Why did you pick these stories, loser? And I was like, I picked Poe and Hawthorne, and yeah, nice job, idiot.
Yeah, well, guess what?
Yeah.
One of those things may not be true this year.
One of those. Okay, well, we'll find out which one. I'm still fat.
Well, we got the dumb and we got the good stories. We'll see which one it is.
Okay, so this year, I completely did away with the idea of trying to pick like legacy classics, although today we are doing a legacy classic.
The legacy.
The legacy classic. I think my first scary story. It seems like it's a lot of people's first scary story. It's
It was my first scary story. Yeah.
frequently anthologized. But then after that, we're going to do a bunch of stories that are, I think they are all legacy classics in kind of the weird fiction field among aficionados, but they're not, they're not
Among the
ones-
weirdos who like this sort of thing.
Yeah, among the weirdos who like this sort of thing, these are the sort of things that the weirdos like. But I tried to represent a broad spectrum of genre. And I don't know who I was watching, but they said
I'm out. I'm leaving.
You know what? It was Alex Trebek. I was watching Jeopardy, and he said the word genre, but he said genre. He really swallowed that.
You know what I haven't completely come to terms with is how sad it's going to be when Jeopardy has to get a new host.
Yeah, that will be sad.
The world will not be the same.
Yeah, no, I am sad about that, and I guess it's going to be pretty soon because he's pretty sick, I think.
Yeah, he is.
But And he's
Maybe
like,
I wonder if they'll just quit Jeopardy.
I don't think they should. It's a great format. I mean, I love Alex Trebek, but I want them to keep doing Jeopardy.
They have to keep it going long enough for one of us to go into Jeopardy.
Yeah, exactly.
I nominate Jake.
I nominate Jake. I second the nomination.
He's got a better chance of having that TV charisma.
Yeah, Jake's got that TV charisma.
People will love it when he becomes the next.
I'll lose.
What's his name?
Ken Jennings?
Yeah.
I think I know somebody that's been on Jeopardy.
Yeah.
My wife knows somebody that's been on Jeopardy. Actually, it was funny. We were watching Jeopardy, and she was just like, I know that guy.
Huh.
And then she didn't know that he had been on Jeopardy, and he did very poorly, actually. There's a reason maybe she didn't know he was on Jeopardy.
The facts.
I think my high school physics teacher was on Jeopardy.
You do okay?
He's been on several game shows. He's a super smart guy. Yeah, he would do great.
So on those kind of trivia shows.
Yeah.
When it comes to just recalling random facts.
Show 3212. Mike Kelly, a high school physics teacher from Newburgh, Indiana.
There you go.
I'm not sure how I would do. I do okay watching, but it depends on the category. When it comes to just recalling little facts, I'm not always the greatest.
He had a winning streak too.
Nice.
Wow, so he made some money.
I feel like there are certain subjects that I'm so weak in that it would just kill me, like geography.
It all comes down to what that last final category is, too.
Mm-hmm.
If
he came away with $15,000.
Nice.
So not a big winner, but
no, not. But
hey,
still $15,000.
Yeah,
I would take it.
Yeah, somebody offered me $15,000. I wouldn't spit in their face.
Probably the best show to get a chance on would have been like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Because you have
he definitely tried to get on that one. I think he might have too.
Because you have a good chance of walking away with at least $20,000 on that show.
Folks, we're talking about The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe.
Wait, that's the Raven.
Nevermore. What gaggage do you guys bring to this gory?
I read it when I was young. It was my first horror story, and it kind of, along with, for some reason, my granddad or somebody had these stories, and I read it, and I read The Pit and the Pendulum, and it kind of, I don't know, there was like a rancid, dark, forbidding quality to both of them that really stuck with me.
People have observed that about Poe
and probably turned me, I think, against horror. I didn't like it quite as much because that was in the period where I was reading a lot of Dickens too. So it was the Dickens for me, not the Poe. So anyways, that's my baggage with it.
There you go. Jake, your baggage?
I remember reading it. I don't remember the context. I don't remember if it was just if I picked it up in I'm certain it was in a school textbook. I don't know if I read it for class or if it was one of those times where I was flipping around in the textbook and reading everything but the thing I was supposed to be reading. But I remember, it got me.
It's scary, but I do need to take that back because I don't think this was my first introduction to horror.
Oh, what was it?
I think my first introduction to horror was reading. I was at my cousin's house in North Carolina, and they had books we weren't allowed to read, which was the Goosebumps series. And I read one about a ventriloquist dummy.
Yeah.
I remember being very scared of that book. So,
Goosebumps were my introduction to the genre as well.
The genre.
I forget the name of that particular one. The Puppet Master's Revenge or something like that.
No, I can see the cover of it. If you give me a minute, I'll
I can see
probably think it. Probably remember it.
You did famously on this show, and one of the moments that delighted me the most, managed to pull Say Cheese and Die.
Yeah.
For the one Goosebumps cover that I vividly remember, which is a bunch of skeletons like at a barbecue or something being photographed.
Yep.
Say Cheese and Die.
Say Cheese and Die.
Oh, I almost had it. Night of the Living Dummy.
Yep. Whoa.
There you go.
That's amazing.
Yep. Jake's Goosebumps recall, second to none.
Well, if he has a Goosebumps category on Jeopardy.
Yep.
What is Say Cheese and Die, Alex? Oh, man.
This horror classic by R.L. Stein features...
Yeah, the category is just great works of literature.
$2,000 question. Or it's the bonus.
Yeah, it's
what do they call the double...
Double Jeopardy. Daily Double.
Thank you. Yeah, the Daily Double.
Oh, man. Nothing annoys me more than when someone goes small for a Daily Double. I just saw one yesterday where she was like, I'll bet $100, Alex. It's like, come on, lady.
Bet it all.
Have a backbone. I mean, statistically, the people like Jennings, the people that do well on Jeopardy, the people that make a lot of money always generally make it a true daily double. I mean,
that's how that one guy had his big run. Is it wasn't necessarily. I mean, he had good detail recall or whatever, trivia recall, but he also
he just knew how to play.
He was a
Jeopardy.
risk taker. He's a gambler.
Yeah, exactly. So. That's the gambling aspect of Jeopardy is more important than I think a lot of these dumb contestants give it credit for.
So from what I've seen, you have to be willing to take the risk of getting the question wrong and just always be the fastest to answer, because odds are you'll know most of the questions.
Which is why some people buzz in and then have no idea.
Look like idiots.
They're just like, I read this story I've told this story on the Bookening before in various contexts, but it was in a 4th or 5th grade, I think, literature textbook. And I was doing what Jake just said, reading all the stories that weren't assigned and or just reading ahead. I just happened to come across The Telltale Heart in the middle of the night in my room by myself. Perfect situation for maximum Telltale Heart reading pleasure.
You found it delicious.
It was delicious. No, it wasn't
deliciously fey.
No. It was not deliciously fey, actually. It was just... since then, I've developed the deliciously fey bone in my body.
The deliciously fey bone.
You know how people have funny bones.
You have the deliciously fey bone.
But reading The Telltale Heart for the first time, it was just unpleasant. It was what Brandon described. It was just like, oh, I don't care for this at all. This is really scary. And there's nothing...
It's sickening.
Yeah, there's nothing fun about... Like, it's not ghosts and goblins. There's no distance that you can kind of put yourself from it. It's just like, this is what sick, psychological man is capable of in all his squalor.
Live inside the heart of a murderer who is being tormented by his guilty conscience for 20 minutes or however long it takes you to read it.
Right. Yeah, and so it made me feel bad. It made me feel... And this is kind of one of those feelings that I think grows into that deliciousness, probably in a bad way, but it felt very transgressive. Like, I shouldn't be reading this. Like, I've stumbled on something that's forbidden. Like, I feel guilty. I don't know whether my parents knew this was in the textbook, whether they would want me to read it if they knew about it. I don't remember whether I knew Poe or not. I assume I probably knew who he was.
Yeah, I mean, I think my first introduction to Poe was The Raven. I think it's most people's.
Yeah.
That or this.
Yeah. I mean, he does what he does pretty well. Like, it's very, the other feelings it evokes. So he is very feeling oriented. It's very, affective that way.
Yeah.
Dealing it with affect.
Well, if anybody's ever read his Philosophy of Composition essay, which is a wonderful essay on writing The Raven, he says in any kind of short work, you want to choose one feeling or one mood. I mean, this was part of Poe's philosophy. And then you want to make everything point toward conjuring that up. So he's not going for a multiplicity of effects or anything like that. He has one thing he wants to do.
And here it's the danger and the threat of being watched. And this risk of this psychopath, because it's horrifying when he gets obsessed with that vulture eye and that itself. There's just something creepy. I think that has to go with the transgression. He picks out these weird ways of talking about things. So like having the old man have a vulture eye, it's just, that makes you, he seems a little creepy himself.
Yeah.
Adds to that element, but just the guy watching him at night, like slowly opening the door and then the lamp slowly, the little beam of light on the vulture eye. It's claustrophobic. It's dark and scary. And it gets across that feeling that really it's difficult to talk about, but it's really, he's good at it. He does it. Whether or not it's a good thing to dwell on.
Well, it's like a waking guilt dream. I mean, it reminds me of those dreams you have where you've killed somebody, or I don't know if you guys ever, I hope you guys have these dreams, or where you just know you've done something. Maybe you've cheated on your wife or whatever it is. You've done something so transgressive that you can never go back from it. You live with this guilt. And if anyone's ever had, I know this is a category of dreams. I know you guys have had these dreams. You wake up and then you can't shake it for a while. Like you still feel bad. And at a certain point, say to yourself, I didn't actually do anything. And yet it was, and yet it was all there.
You feel like it's a part of your subconscious
part of you. Yeah.
And these do feel very id Freudian, gross. They feel gross, but they feel gross in a way because they're tapping into things that you know are true, but you just don't want to think about and don't know that you should be thinking about.
Yeah. Well, I think the part, as a kid at least, that felt the most transgressive in that way was just the idea that he kills this man because of his eye.
Yeah.
You know, the Cask of Amontillado, I've always thought it's a weak Poe story. I've never liked it. It always just seems like a really simplistic, he buried the guy alive. How spooky.
Because he was a better wine connoisseur.
Because he was a better wine connoisseur. But that one feels petty and like it kind of makes some kind of lame sense, at least in this heightened Medici era kind of way. The Telltale Heart is spooky in a very transgressive way, precisely because it feels like there's no motivation, there's no reason, there's nothing to grasp onto that makes any sense. And yet in some kind of Monsters from the Id way, it all makes perfect sense.
Well, it's his portrait of psychopathy, or however you say it, psychopathy. So I hear people say it differently.
Right.
So, and that's scary and weird and feels like something you shouldn't. It's like podcasts on serial killers. Mm-hmm. Like, should you really be taking joy and delight in this? So,
yeah, I used to do a decent amount of true crime, and I had to give it up at a certain point.
Things that are like on real serial killers where the motivation just seems so irrational.
Mm-hmm.
Or the obsession we have with that, with this darkness and this. What's uncomfortable about a story like Poe is that it's hard to parse the difference between, you're reading this because you want to be scared, and you're actually then teaching yourself to love what is dark when you shouldn't really be loving what is dark, because part of it has to be driven by some sort of joy and pleasure. Otherwise, why aren't you doing it?
Yeah.
And that's hard to get away from, and that's hard to justify.
This one feels the most like that to me. Something like the Pit and the Pendulum. It's just like, oh no, horrible things are happening to this guy. I hope he escapes. It feels more like a classic suspense story to me, at least. There's a lot of dark trappings to it, but
it's a good story on the Inquisition.
Yeah, good old Inquisition. Yeah. But this one, I can't think of a Poe story that I would say puts you in that headspace. And then maybe some of that's just whatever the opposite of nostalgia is. Some of that's just I read it first and it put me in that headspace first. And
even The Mask of the Red Death doesn't really do it. I mean, that's more of an allegory. But this one feels not like an allegory. This one's visceral and gross in a way that the others aren't.
Yeah, I really can't think of a story that has affected me more.
Now, what sets this apart from like modern horror is that modern horror would just have him, I don't know what it would do, but here at least he's consumed by the guilt of the heart beating, and that's part of the story, is he can't keep himself from confessing at the end.
Well, we're going to do a Patricia Highsmith story later, and one of the things that she trades in is the idea that people do these kinds of things and don't feel much of anything.
Yeah.
And it's creepy or whatever, precisely because the guilt is subliminated or ignored altogether.
Well, she's also dealing with marital abuse. So.
Yeah. Well, in this particular story.
Yeah.
But like her most famous story is besides Strangers on a Train and The Talented Mr. Ripley are both stories of people who just get away with certain things. And it's creepy to think that they might get away with these.
That's a creepy movie too.
The
Talented Mr. Ripley.
Yeah. They make a lot of things text in that movie that were subtext in the novel. Yeah. And I don't think it's the better for it. But whatever. Well,
it is nice seeing Jude Law get beat to death. All right.
I like Jude Law.
Jude Law's great.
What do you got against
nothing?
Young Dumbledore.
I don't actually. I like Jude Law.
I really like current Jude Law. Like
Jude Law has matured well.
Yeah. I think anyway. Once his hairline started receding and stuff, like there's just a certain
dignity.
There's a certain dignity that comes with
being
Pope. Yeah, that comes with being the young Pope.
Yeah,
no, that comes with being not a pretty boy anymore. Jude Law wears his age pretty well. I think that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. There you go. Hear to Jude Law.
Hear to Jude Law. Well, anybody got any more deep thoughts about the Telltale Heart?
No.
Nope.
How many decapitated heads out of 10?
All of them.
All of them? All right.
Yeah, all of this one gets it. It has all the elements that you have to be careful about with horror, but it's definitely the most effective of them. Mm-hmm. So it's a classic for a reason.
It is a classic for a reason, and unlike some of the Mask of the Red Death or that stupid Lovecraft story from last year, the prose is very effective. You can't accuse it of being.
No,
it might be purple, but it's appropriately purple.
Poe's a fine writer.
Yeah. Actually, I think he can be a pretty bad writer sometimes, but
he also can be a fine writer.
Yes, and in this case, he is. I always like the snotty Baudelaire quote about. No.
You always like being a snotty.
Yes, I always like remembering snotty things that other people have
Nathan?
done. The snotty. What's the name of that guy that just died? Harold Bloom.
Oh yeah.
He said, "Poe reads better in translation, even into English."
Oh man, Harold Bloom.
Yeah, more like Harold Gloom. Good day. We'll be back next Tuesday. And don't forget to draw us pictures of the locust of meaning. He's a creepy fella.